I'm here with Patricia Mays, coordinating producer for ESPN. I kind of started this. How did you get to ES? How does someone get to ESPN?
So I've been in journalism I've been in the media business for 20 plus years. Is that a bad thing? Does that give away my age? So it was a natural progression. It was a fairly traditional route. I started as a reporter for the Associated Press, which at the time was probably twice as big as it is today.
Right.
And it was, I like to call it, this is really going to date me, it was the internet before the internet. It was a 24/7 wire service,
Right, sure,
right?
Sure.
We were delivering news to the world, literally.
What did you cover?
So I actually started on the news business, which I recommend for everyone who's getting into this business. I mean, even if your interest is in sports. So I started in the news business. I started in Detroit. I was worked a night shift. So when I say old school, right?
Sure.
And I had to deal with anything that they threw at me. It was really a sink or swim atmosphere, but it was probably the experience was invaluable. It really was. So I had to cover everything from crime stories to politics. If there were political campaigns that came through, I remember Clinton coming through. The first time. And then also I started dabbling in sports because there were so many colleges there.
Sure.
I remember having to try to write a college basketball game off a box score that was off of something that was faxed over. So basically I bounced around from bureau to bureau, was in Atlanta, covered medicine, just a number of subjects, and then eventually moved into focusing on sports. So then went the editing management path, like I said, pretty traditional, and then ended up at headquarters, AP headquarters in New York as a national editor. Again, news, did that through September 11th, and then shortly after that, I moved over to the sports department full time.
And when did you come to ESPN?
In 2009.
Okay.
Yeah. After I left AP, I did a short stint at a newspaper in Southern California. I ran that sports department for a while, and then I joined ESPN on the digital side.
And so when you came here, what were your expectations? What did you think about the place, and what did you kind of learn about the place upon coming here?
So although I started on the news side, and I was a sports fan. I grew up obviously watching football with my father. I wasn't, I know for a lot of people, they think about it from day one and it's a dream destination. For me, I was excited about it because it was a great company, but it wasn't the pinnacle of journalism. But I was happy to be joining such a great company. And then when I got here and really started to dive in, and you get beyond the first layer of I think sometimes people are so focused on, I think sometimes people think of us as an entertainment company first, and I just saw all the great journalism and storytelling that was being done here. So I was excited to be part of that, and I was hired to oversee the team that programs the ESPN.com homepage.
And so now what is your role now?
So I just transitioned over to the TV side of the business in the last 2-3 months. After my initial role, when I got here and I was running the homepage, that eventually expanded and I became the executive editor. I was overseeing all daily sports content online, that's on web, on our apps. And in the last, I think 3 months, I have transitioned over to the TV side where I am managing content integration and distribution across all platforms. So it's a natural fit, right? I've spent several years, obviously, on the digital side, getting to better understand that business. And given where our industry is going, where technology is going, it makes sense that we need to, clearly we need to better align our TV and digital programs.
Well, as you said to me, you said that there used to be there was an ESPN Sports Center. It just ran on Sports Center. ESPN magazine article just appeared in the magazine.
Yep. ESPN.com.
Yes. And now everything's kind of comes together. Why is that important in this day and age?
I think, partially just what's happening in our, as you know, right, in our industry and how technology is changing how people consume content. So now we think, and you might have heard this already, we like to use the term platform agnostic, right? We're just going to we're going to cover the best stories, create the best content, and then talk about where to distribute them and how to distribute them, wherever the fan is, as opposed to thinking in, silos that, I'm just focusing on this feature because it's going to go on linear on the TV, your traditional TV set, and I'm just writing this piece, and the only place it's going to show up is on the website. Well, those days are over. I mean, content is when you produce a piece of content, it is going to fans are going to consume it in a number of ways, right? Some of them will still watch a feature on traditional TV. Some of them are watching only TV that streams online. Some of them will only watch, video on demand.
So do you have an example or two of a story that kind of like, okay, we have an idea for a story, and then how did it manifest itself as far as...
So now I'm trying to think of the best example, because ideally, if we're doing our job right, it's happening every day, right? Every time we have event coverage. What's the latest? Cuba is probably a good idea, a good example. The baseball game in Cuba, we had OTL producing a live show. We had feature segments that came out of there that appeared on both the TV broadcast as well as digital clips that were disseminated via mobile alerts that were posted on the website, that showed up in the app. In addition, we had written coverage, and we also had coverage that was translated into Spanish and that showed up on our Deportes platform. So I think that's happening, and I'm sure as soon as we're done with this, I'll think of just a great example.
I think of one from Wright Thompson, who's an amazing writer. I mean, did an amazing piece on Tiger Woods. And I think that was a story that kind of, it was a magazine story, but it didn't just run in the magazine.
Exactly.
I mean, you guys did a television presentation with that, and you had an online presentation.
Yep. Same thing with we did a piece, Undefeated did, on the gymnast Simone Biles, who probably a lot of people don't know, but in a couple months, I'm guessing if she performs as well as we expect her to, she will be a household name. So that was a piece there was a written piece that was done by The Undefeated, which is one of our new sites. There was a featured piece for television that was done by E60, and we made sure that those two, were married from the beginning in terms of they complemented each other, and then also just in terms of the crew. Whereas it used to be we'd send out separate crews. TV would go and do an interview and not talk to digital, and digital would go and interview and not tell TV. Well, now we are having conversations before we even go out on
So do you guys have meetings every day where
I'd like to call us the worldwide leader of meetings.
But so what happens at those meetings?
So there are any number of meetings. They big picture. It's usually like a weekly planning meeting that includes TV represented, digital, print, social. Can't forget about social. Radio. Can't forget about radio. And that usually is a meeting that talks about big events coming up, coverage for big events, and then also just big picture, unique storytelling projects that we might have in the works.
And so, so these...
And then there will be, other meetings throughout the week that are a little more granular, either topic specific or sport specific.
What was it like changing the culture and the mindset for people who were just used to one story, one outlet, and how did that go? How long was there a transition, and did you kind of have to, or did someone have to kind of get in there?
I wouldn't say, wait, this is never going public, right?
Well, it's going to be for a class.
I wouldn't say was there. There is a transition,
there
right?
Still is.
One of the hardest things to change is culture and behavior. So it is a transition. That's one of the reasons why I was recruited to come over to the TV side. It's when you've been used to, and I don't mean this in a critical way, right? Same thing in the newspaper industry.
Right.
When you're used to doing something the same way for for so long and it's proven successful, it's sometimes hard to get out of that mindset. So it's a continual process, and I think that everybody's receptive and embraces the change because they understand this is what we have to do for the health of the business and to better serve fans.
So what kind of feedback are you getting from the fans, the viewers, the readers? I mean, what as far as how this concept is being received?
So I think I'm not sure that it's as obvious from the outside looking in, from fans, right? They are just, their behavior is changing as technology is changing, right? So I'm not sure they're thinking, I don't know. I don't know if they're consciously thinking, I'm using my phone all the time now. Right, look at all that great ESPN content. Or, is it a case where we're just making sure that as we see growth in other platforms, as people are using apps more, as people are using their phone more, we're just trying to make sure that content is where we're seeing the growth.
And a lot of this is, and we've talked about this plenty in our class, is anticipating where everything's going. How much does that play into what you guys are doing?
When you say where everything's going,
the whole how people are consuming.
Yeah.
This is a step, and we don't know what's going to be next. But you guys are.
So I can't answer that question. If I could answer that question,
right,
then I would be next in line for Skipper's job, right? I wish I could predict that. I think that
But it's part of. You can't just stay the same.
No, you can't. And that's I've never worked at a place like this. Like, change is embraced and it's encouraged, and this place is forever changing. We have some super smart people here, much smarter than I am, who are, looking at the numbers and looking at data and looking at trends. And they're doing a good job of advising us as to, how and where we should distribute content.
And so it's interesting that you say it. So the thing that I've asked people about the culture of ESPN. So you would say the culture of ESPN, a big part of it is this ability to take and look at things differently, take chances, think out of the box. Is that kind of something that you saw?
Absolutely. I think it's a place that encourages taking risks, calculated risks, changing as we need to. I think sometimes it's hard because it's such a huge, it's like I remember someone corrected me. I used to say, it's like, trying to turn the Titanic. And they said, the Titanic sank. Use a different analogy. And I was like, okay, a big aircraft carrier, right? So sometimes it's hard to be as nimble and as fast as we'd like to, just because it's such a big company and it's owned by such a important brand and a big parent company in Disney. But that aside, I do think that we do a good job of actually trying to get a real sense of what viewers are doing and how they're consuming our content and adjusting our plans.
So you're going to be speaking to hopefully future producers, some future producers and some editors. As we wrap it up here, what kind of advice do you have for them as far as, I would imagine, the communication skills has got to be paramount as far when you're trying to deal and manage with all different personalities and trying to navigate your way through navigate a story through the system. Is that what stands out for you, the ability to kind of forge relationships and communicate? And
communication absolutely is key. I think that's key in every business, right? I think I'm surprised when I go out to recruit how many students are still focused on one platform. Like in 2016, and I've got 2 back-to-back recruiting trips, but how many say, I really just want to write, or I really just want to do TV? And I have to say, no. You
really
need to be a multimedia journalist. You don't need to be an expert in every platform, but you need to have at least a basic understanding, social, TV, the written word, digital, at least an understanding of how it works, and be willing to embrace that. I would say, take risks. That's something that I feel like in my younger years I was too conservative and didn't do enough of. Try new things, and don't be afraid to ask questions and raise your hands and volunteer and take an assignment you wouldn't normally think that you'd want. I mean, having that news experience was probably the best thing that happened to me and made me a much stronger journalist.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hope that helps.
That was great.